Living my bucolic life, free healthy city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and sew and spin, and move the horses into the barn. Then time to move them out again. Red barns, green pastures, beautiful white houses. The view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as it is plain to see. I'm living my bucolic life.
Hello, welcome back. I am going to be making a project today that's a little bit different because I'm going to be using a regular pattern to make somewhat of a costume. This is not for me. This is for a friend of mine who is going to a Jane Austen gathering, and she needs a Regency looking gown for both her and her mother. And it has to be done very quickly. And I don't have time to do, the Regency era costume design patterns that they have, which usually include a very fitted empire waist bodice, a little Spencer jacket or a long jacket and everything. I don't have time for this. We need to whip this out really quickly. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is making something that's not period correct, but period acceptable in my mind. And I'm going to be using this pattern, okay? It's a current pattern, but it's a reprint of a 1970s era Laura Ashley pattern, okay? And I think with this, I'm going to be able to get the look that I want and to be able to make it so that I can adjust the fit with only one quick fitting, and then it'll be done. So what I have done, because they dropped off fabric here to my house yesterday, and I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to work it because there are modifications I'm making to this pattern. And so I actually made one of them up last night and today. What is today? It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So between last night and this morning, I got one of them done. That's how fast this project's going to go. And I'm about to get started cutting out the second one, and I decided I'm going to turn the camera on because this might be helpful for somebody who wants to come up with a Regency era dress but doesn't want to go through all of the hassle of the really precise fittings and everything. So I'm going to turn the camera over really quick and show you the one that I made. Now, I just have it up on my dress form. I'm not going to be able to do a fitting to adjust gathers and everything until a few days from now. But I just have everything snugged up just so it'll be secure on my dress form, so you can see what I'm kind of aiming at for the one that we're going to be making. Okay, so this is the one that I've just made, and just wanted to show you the basic idea is that there's going to be a high-waisted belt, okay, and it will be connected to the dress. It's not just going to be loose. These sleeves are open on the pattern. They have little elastic cinching them and everything, but you know what? We don't want that. We want something that's going to be easy to move around and not highlighting, middle-aged mom arms, okay? So I just put some eyelash lace on there. And I think it's going to give the idea and be easy to be moved around in, to enjoy yourself comfortably. So let me go ahead, tip the camera back down the table, and I'll walk you through how I am making this. Okay, so the first thing with this pattern, it's a little odd, and it's not obvious looking at this. And honestly, it's not obvious what's odd about it even looking here. So I'm going to point it out to you. Okay, it looks like we have view A, which has a straight top and a little cross tie. And then we also have view B, which has like a wrap and the little tie there, okay? And then view B does not have a ruffle, view A does have a ruffle. These are the same dress. Basically, this is the back, or this is the back. You can wear them forwards or backwards. If you wear this on the front, this is what the back looks like. If you wear this on the front, that's what the back looks like. It's the same dress, and it's a wrap dress, okay? This whole part here, it doesn't actually say anywhere, but it is a wrap dress. That's a wrap, and the way that they cinch the whole thing together is with the little tie, okay? So, obviously I'm not making a wrap dress, and so I've modified my pattern, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. But I was just going to point that out because it took me a while to figure out what in the world they were doing, because it was only like basically one set of pieces. So like here's view A. On this view A, they have this, you know, wrap part and flat part. On view B, they have a wrap part and flat part. It's the same dress, just one has a ruffle and one does not. That's the only difference. Okay, so the other thing, let me get a pen here if I can find one. Here it is. All right, on the pattern pieces, this is the back, okay, back. This piece here gets put on over here, like so. Okay, and those get sewed together, so it's one huge front piece, okay? I am not doing a wrap, and on my front piece, there's a mark that has center front that's like right about here, okay? So I am disregarding this piece. I don't need it, and I'm also not going to be cutting this part here. I'm just going to be cutting my front from the center front over. My sleeves, you can see they have the little elastic and everything's all cinched up really cute, which works great for the model, you know, wonderful for them. The pattern piece itself is plenty wide. So what I'm doing is I'm making this pattern piece longer by about 6 inches, so plus 6 inches here. And I'm not cinching in the bottom. Instead, I'm putting decorative lace or something. And you saw I used the eyelash lace on my one that's up on my dress form right now. And the other thing is, for my dress, and I'm doing kind of this version here, which does not have a ruffle, I am extending it. My friend's a tall girl, and so I'm extending it down 14 inches. All right, to get it floor length and then some, because I want to be able to put a hem in it, you know. So this piece here, this piece number 3, I'm extending it by 14 inches. And this remaining piece of piece 2, which is my front, I am adding 14 inches here, okay? I'm not doing the ruffle, obviously, so that's out of the picture. There's an elastic guide that I'm not really using either, so that's out of the picture. So basically what I'm using is the back, the sleeve, and this part of piece number 2. Okay, so just those 3 pieces. So with that, let me go ahead and start laying out and cut out my fabric. Now these are extremely long pieces. Oh, there's one other thing I want to show you. Hang on one second. All right, so one other thing I wanted to point out, this pattern goes up to size 24. All right, and size 24 is the one I'm doing, but if you look at the envelope here, they have size 24 has a bust measurement of 46 inches. Now my friend is 53, she's a big girl. Now you might think, oh, that's just never going to work. But looking down here, the finished bust measurement for that is 63.5. So they incorporate a lot of ease in here, lots of gathers, okay? And if you're wanting to get the gathered look, yes, you want a whole lot of ease. But in Regency era garments, it's not usually super full and super gathered here, you know? It's more fitted looking. So not having a whole lot of gathers up here at the top to look really bulky is not a bad thing. But underneath the bust, because the pieces come out like this, I'm still going to have plenty of room down below. So even though the pattern technically says that this is only for a bust of up to 46, and hers is, you know, what is that? 4 3/7 7 inches larger, we're still well within the ease amount. I mean, that's still giving me 10 inches of ease at the bust. So, you know, all good. So if you're going to make it, pay attention to how much ease they have built in, because these pieces are wide. Okay, anyhow, with that being said, I have cut out my size 24 pieces, and I am going to go ahead and lay out my fabric. Now, because I have extended these pieces down, okay, they go wider than what the layout is going to have you do. So I have to pretty much cut them out in single layers or add a little bit of fabric and piece it together. I'm going to show you that. Okay, so my method, you know, take it for what it is. I'm going to try to move the camera so you can see what's going on over here. This is my back piece. I have it placed on a fold. You can see this is the fold of my fabric over here, okay? I need to add 14 inches to the bottom, and I have pre-washed and pre-dried this, and it is a cotton, so if you see any little wrinkles, that's what that is. I will be ironing it as I go. Okay, so this mark here is at 14 inches. So I'm going to get started just putting a couple pins, because I'm not going to do everything permanent on here yet. So I know I need at least that much room on the bottom in order to get the length I need. Okay, now over here on this edge, if I was to follow the line of my size, which is way out here, okay, and adding the 24 inches at the bottom, or 14 inches at the bottom, you can see my ruler's way out here. Okay, so I'm basically going to have to sew an extra piece of fabric from right about here all the way down, a strip that's going to come out to about this far. That's maybe about 8 inches or so, just to be safe. So what I'm going to do, where my squeaky camera stand is right here, I'm going to draw a little arrow on both sides, because that's my little cue that says start sewing here. I have 6 yards of this fabric to play with, which is plenty, but it's kind of cumbersome to be dealing with fabric that long on a short table, which is what I'm doing here. So what I'm going to do is figure out about where I need that to be ending here. And this looks like about the spot. I am just going to clip and tear that off so that I'm only dealing with a smaller part at once, okay? So now that's enough to do my back. And I'm just going to set this piece aside for a minute, because the scrap that I'm going to be needing to sew over here, I'm going to get from the side piece when I cut my fronts out. And I have to do those on a single layer. Okay, so this is my fronts piece. It's a large, very large piece, okay? This point right here, there's a line that says center front. I am just folding the whole thing at that center front part. I don't want to cut this other side off, because at some point I might want to, you know, make it up in their version. So I'm just folding it in half to get it out of the way. But even with that folded, it is way too wide to cut on the fold. And what I am calling the front is the one that looks like it's a wrap, okay? So it's going to come down kind of in a V. So I'm still going to have one side that is flat, one side in a V. When they come to do their fitting in a few days, they can pick which side they want in the front and which side they want in the back, and we'll just go with it from there. So with all that being said, I am going to be cutting my pieces out as a single, on a single layer. So I'll cut one out, you know, with my fabric out flat, and then cut the other one out. But when I cut it, I'm going to be adding 5/8 of an inch or so out here along this side, where I just folded everything, for a seam allowance, because I'm going to need that to sew my two front pieces together. So to add the 14 inches down here on the front, I am just lining up my ruler with this outside edge here all the way down to the 14-inch point, turn a corner, and I've got a piece of tape where 14 is, so I don't have to look too closely all the time. Put little marks going across here at that same level, and then just slice it up and over. Once I have this done, I'm going to need to flip my fabric over so that the next piece I cut is wrong side up, so I have two separate pieces, you know, two opposite pieces, that's important, and cut out another one of these. Now I am about to cut out the sleeve, and here it is, and I'm going to be extending it, but I'm not too sure exactly what I'm going to do with the sleeve. And on the other dress, I think you saw that I put that eyelash lace at the bottom. Well, they brought a couple yards of this fabric over with the things, and I'm thinking that the stripe here that has the gold accented leaves might be a pretty piece to put onto the sleeves. Okay, I also have some other lace edgings that I can use, but before I actually cut out the sleeve, I want to cut out a strip of this leaf, gold leaf. You can see it has little gold in there, and put it on my fabric and see how that will work, and that'll help me determine how long I'm going to cut the sleeve. Okay, I think I figured out what I'm going to do, and I'll show you in a minute. It's a little bit extra, but I think it's fun. Is I'm going to be adding from this bottom cut edge about 3 inches, because I'm going to be adding a ruffle at the bottom, but not just any ruffle, but you'll see. So what I'm going to do is come over here and get my chalk. You know what, I'm going to add 4 inches because that's where the tape is. So just continuing this line here down to the 4-inch point. Oh my goodness, I need to pin my pattern down first. Let me go ahead and pin my pattern down, you know, that's important. And then extend my cutting line down here and cut both of those pieces out. I actually changed my mind a little bit. I wanted to show you, instead of coming in this direction with an angled sleeve, move this over, I'm just going to come straight down from the point up here, just coming straight down the edge, and I'm just going to add my 4 inches from this point down. Okay, so it's going to give it just, you know, maybe an extra inch in flare at the bottom, but that's good. You know, I will take it. All right, I just spent way too much time playing with trim to get up a strategy here, and I think I have something now. So now I am back to cutting out my back piece. Remember the one that we have to add a chunk to? So remember I cut some off of when I was doing the front pieces individually? Well, I've torn a piece of fabric that is going to be wide enough for me to use. So I'm just going to pop it up here and sew it just above the selvage edge, like so, on both the front, on both sides of the piece of 45-inch wide fabric that I have here. Once I have this sewn, I'm going to serge the edge, serge both sides together, and then pull this over and press it open, and that should give me a piece that is wide enough that I can cut my back piece on a fold. I don't think anybody's going to be looking down here at the bottom at this seam, and if they do, that's okay. You know, I think that that's a totally acceptable seam to have. So let me go ahead and get these done, and I'll be right back. So at this point, I can fit my back piece on. If you can see, there's the top against the fold, and then down here where I have my extra piece added on, which is sewed there and it's just kind of hanging off, I'm going to be able to continue this line for an extra 14 inches, cut it at the bottom, and I'll have one back piece that is cut on a fold when I'm all done. Okay, so now the fun begins. We're going to start putting this together. And I'm going to be starting with this back piece just because it is here on my table. So I'm going to pull the pattern paper off, take this big old piece over to my serger and serge around the entire edge of it just so that I can keep it from ever wanting to fray. All right, I have an idea of how I'm going to be using my trim fabric. And this is one of the strips that I cut from it. I'm going to be cutting several more. I want to show you the fabric again. Looks like this, okay? So this is my plan, is to have going from the top to the bottom on both the front and the back. Move the camera. Okay, so starting it up here where the point is, okay, that's where the little sleeve is going to be joining. I'm going to start my edge up there and then just continuing along the same straight of grain, and you can kind of see where that is based on the print of the fabric. I'm going to put it straight down this way and just sew it into place, edge stitching it on each side all the way down. I'm doing that before I sew this onto the other pieces or anything else, because I'm thinking that this is going to be a lot easier to handle at this step. So what I do here, I'm going to do on the other side, and just to show you, all I did is basically trim that piece, turn under the edge, and just do a row of edge stitching along the edge, which is kind of holding that in place. And then once it's sewed on the outside, it's going to look like this on the edge. Okay, so let me go ahead and get these two strips trimmed out, edge stitched, and sewn onto my back piece. Okay, so I have it sewn on both sides, and if I flip it over to the wrong side here, you can see where it just kind of peeks out. What I did is I just stitched along the edge, you know, to keep it so it will act as a single unit. And now I'm going to come back and just trim off that extra bit. It's just confusing things here so that the final piece is the correct shape. Okay, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side over here just exactly the same. Good morning. It has been a little while since I turned on the camera. Last night I went ahead and cut out my other strips, edge finished them, and sewed them onto both of my front pieces too. And this is one of my front pieces. So I did the same thing where I just came up to that little point where the sleeve is going to join on, centered it on there, and brought it straight down with a straight of grain, okay? And sewed it on both sides. I figured you didn't need to see that a whole lot because honestly, this is just basically exaggerated trim, and that's very subjective to whatever project you're doing, so I'm just choosing to do that. But after that, I was playing with some of the trims that they brought over, and this GIMP was in the package, and I think it does really well with the coloring. But I also had some lace and some trim with gold in it. And the gold is cool because there's gold in the print here, you know, gold here. But the background was really, really starkly white, and it seemed to clash to me. So last night I went downstairs, I took the wide lace, which you can see here, which was, you know, a yellowish, whitish colored lace, you know, that color, which also kind of clashed a little bit, you know, in my opinion. You know, everyone has one. So I went downstairs, got a big bucket, threw 5 tea bags in there and a bunch of boiling water, and just let this soak in my bucket of tea for a couple hours, pulled it out, rinsed it, and let it dry overnight. And I just ironed this. Now this does look very antique now. So, you know, I think that that's cool. But my main thing was this, and I think that the tea stain took the extreme brightness off it just enough that it's not going to stick out. Oops, my microphone just fell off. That it's not going to stick out like a sore thumb when I use it. I still haven't figured out exactly what I'm doing here, and I keep changing my mind with the sleeve, and I've got my little history book out to look for ideas, and you know, I am thinking. So at this point, I have my 2 sleeves, and I have serged around each one, and I have marked the side that's the back with a little letter B. I don't even know if you can see it right there. Trust me, it's a little B, and I put a a blue chalk X over it in case it disappears. I think I need to put fresh ink in my pen. So before I actually finish up with this sleeve, I want to deal with whatever trim I'm going to be putting on the bottom of it. So this is what I've kind of come up with. This is another strip from that fabric that I got the other stripes from. And I'm going to be putting my lace up here, but instead of just the top being exposed, I'm going to be putting a strip of the leaves on top of it. So it's going to go from this gold leafed fabric to a gold leaf band to the lace. And I think that the color of the lace now kind of goes a lot better with the leaves in here. So that's going to be my sleeve. At first I was going to ruffle this lace, but I've decided that for a mature woman, having a huge amount of ruffles might be a little bit excessive, you know? So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So on the bottom here, the question is, how long do I want it to be? So if I hold this up to my shoulder, at this point, the bottom of the sleeve is here, okay? Now, if my lace is going to add about that much, that's going to be pretty long. I might bump it up a bit because we're going to have long gloves and everything underneath here. So I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and hem up the bottom of this by probably at least 1.5 inches. And I'm just going to fold it up, press it, and run a machine stitch across it because that stitch is going to be covered up with all of this, okay? So let me go ahead and do that for each of my sleeves. Alrighty, so I've got my hem sewed up. You know, the raw edge is still showing, but that's okay. It's going to be covered by a lot of things. So this is stitched at about 1.5 inches. Now the next piece I'm going to put on is my little border here, and I have serged both sides, and on this side I just turned it under and ran a little straight stitch to lock that in, okay? So what I'm going to do is place it so that this edge here is at 2.5 inches. Okay, so I'm just gonna get it started here, put a little pin, move my little deal down, and so on and so forth. And then once I have that all pinned, I'm gonna run a straight stitch straight across here. Then I'm going to come back with my lace and put my lace on. And I've already done this sleeve, so let me show you really quick. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. But, well, not when it's done because I haven't sewed the bottom seam, but I wanted to leave this open so I could show you. So like this is the stitch I'm going to do right now, so that then I can just fold it over and it's clean up here. But while this is still open, coming in here and just doing another row of stitching, just tacking in the top of this lace piece, okay? So then once I have those 2 stitches in, then I can fold this over and press it nicely, and then come back and sew along the bottom, locking everything in so that my thread's over here. From the bottom, it's going to look like this. But from the top, it's going to look like that, okay? So that is my goal. Next time you see these, this will be stitched with white thread on the bottom. I'm going to set white thread up on my treadle machine because I have black on Yolanda. I am working on Yolanda, the Pfaff, today. And so that way I can have 2 different threads going and I don't have to unthread and rethread and everything. So let me go ahead and get that done and I will be right back. Just realized some of you may not know my machine. So this is Yolanda. She is a Pfaff 150 from 1952, I believe. Love her and her tattooed self. And over here on my treadle base today, I still have Frida. Frida the Free. She is a free number 5. So she's the one that I have threaded up in white. Yolanda is in black. And I'm just going to get started sewing that little leaf trim on. Alrighty, so I've got that done. Here it is. I think that's going to look like a cute sleeve, you know? Lovely. So I need to get started putting this whole thing together. The first thing I'm going to do is sew my 2 front pieces together, because remember instead of doing the whole wrap thing. We just basically making a front to a back. And my front, I have 2 pieces. I'm just going to sew that center seam up the front. Now, the way I'm going to need to turn it, I'm going to stop. Well, let me go get one of these pieces here. I'm going to need to stop my stitching about 1 inch from the top. Here is a front piece, and the fronts, and like I said, the pattern says it's reversible. You can put the front and the back are interchangeable. So if they want to wear the other side in the front, we'll figure that out when they come to fit it tomorrow. But we're calling this the front because that's what the pattern says. So up here, where it comes down at an angle, I'm going to be making a casing up here. But in order to make the casing so that it's going to actually kind of come to a point instead of just swooping, I'm going to stop stitching about 1 inch from the top. So I'm just going to make a little line right here, 1 inch down, just to show me that's where I'm going to start my stitch. And I'm going to do the entire front piece here at 5/8 of an inch, and then press that seam allowance open. Come on, fingers, like that. All right, I've got it pressed open here, and I'm going to actually be making my casings while my pieces are separate, okay? But because I don't want to deal with this kind of stuff, I just have a little piece of stitch witchery that I am putting a couple inches of it underneath each side of this seam allowance, like so, and press it down just to fuse these little seam allowances down so that they don't give me any trouble, because I am going to be using twill tape, not elastic, but twill tape, when I'm doing my upper gathering, okay? So now I'm just going to turn down this edge, which is why I stopped, you know, up here. I'm turning it down at about 3/4 of an inch, just kind of eyeballing it here. I'm going to press that, and then I'm going to stitch it right along this edge, you know, just inside my serging with a straight stitch all the way down, leaving the ends both open. Okay, so if it's not clear yet, at this point I have totally gone off script with the construction of this, because the way they are going to do theirs in the instructions is totally different than the way I'm doing mine. But you know, I have a different purpose for mine, and it's my project, so I can do it the way I want to, you know, and you can too. You have that freedom. So what I am doing is I am going to be feeding twill tape, and this is 1/4 inch polyester twill tape. It will not stretch. It's fairly strong. If I was to use elastic, these dresses are very heavy, and I'm very concerned that that elastic would stretch out of shape, and we just don't want to have to deal with that. Plus, I am going to be putting trim on the outside of this once I have it cinched in, because you know, when they come to do the fitting, I can pull it in or out as much as is needed at that point. And then once I have everything adjusted to the right length that's going to fit their bodies, then I can, you know, set these in stone here so they're not going to, you know, expand or contract any like elastic would. And then with the outside in a set location, then I can come back and do some kind of a edging on top of that. Whereas if I was to try to do the edging on it like this, nice and flat, and then cinch it up, it would get really bumpy, you know, and for a thick trim, that could be not too cool. So basically what I've done is I'm running the twill tape all the way across here. I am going to anchor it in place here in the middle. So I'm just going to stitch over that so that at this point it's stationary. And then I need to trim off enough that I can run it up, this side. So I have adjustable ends pulling out each side of my front. And I'm going to do the same thing with the sleeves and the back piece. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. I've just stitched over the twill tape in the center. This is going to have trim over it, so you know that's okay. I'm going to be going ahead and doing this same type of thing on the back pieces and the sleeves. Okay, so let me just grab a sleeve here. So basically just turning under this top edge, you know, it might get a pucker or two in here because, you know, it's arced. And there are things you can do to ease that in. I might show you that. I haven't shown you that in a while. But I'm basically going to be turning under this edge, again, at about 3/4 inch, which is too big for my 1/4 inch twill tape, but it's easy to deal with my bodkin. Love my bodkin, so that's why I am making it that size. So let me take you over to the machine. I'm going to show you how I'm going to work this in. Okay, so basically, I'm just running a row of stitching, you know, just inside where my serging is. So that's, you know, about 1/8 of an inch-ish in. Putting my finger at the back of my presser foot. And I have my stitch length pretty long, because you want it long so you can build up a lot. And I'm basically working just a little bit of ease into this. So if you can see, there's tiny little gathers. You know, just enough that it's going to fold nicely. So if I'm running it, just push this finger up against the back of your presser foot until there's so much stuff back there that it's starting to buckle. Let it go and start again. You can see this goes pretty fast. Okay, so now I can pull this out. And where's scissors? Here you are. Okay, let me clip this off. So if I'm going to go ahead and fold it, it's already got that little curve worked in. So I can just turn it over really easily like that at whatever, you know, distance I want, say 3/4 of an inch, and it's going to lay nice and flat. I can just press it, pin it, and then stitch it flat. I wanted to show you on the back piece, the curve is the opposite that it is on the sleeve. And so, you know, if you happen to get a little bit of a inconsistency, I don't think I do, I think it looks good. But if something's not exactly lining up right and you might get a little pucker, it's gonna be okay because it's gonna be all gathered anyway, so that will get hidden. But I wanted to show you the ends don't match up to the sides. They just fold straight down like that. So I have this sewn across here also. Alrighty, so let me put my twill tape through here and we're gonna get started sewing these pieces together. The first thing I'm going to do is, this is my back piece. I'm going to layer my front piece on it, right sides together, and sew up the side seams. Okay, this is where the sleeve's going to go, so I'll just be sewing up the side seams on both sides and then pressing those seam allowances open. Okay, so I want to show you where I am right now. This is my big old dress, and I have my side seams sewn together, and these two pieces did not match up totally exactly, but they're close enough. I think that that's going to work because it is going to have a waist gathering right there, so it will blend. But I have my side seams pressed open, okay, and that is at a place where it's ready to go on to the next step, which is dealing with my sleeves. So this one I've already sewed that side seam, press the seam allowance open. I still need to do that to this little sleeve here. So on the outside, this band matches up, okay? And then I just trimmed down here to try to make the little lace somewhat match. It didn't match up exactly, but it came close. So one of these is my back. Here it is, my blue X mark over a B. So this is my back side. So I need to match that up to the back side of my dress. Now, this that is going all the way across is the back. This one that comes down to a V, which is right here, that's the front, okay? So this doesn't work because that's the front. I need to flip it over like this. Okay, so now I have the back side of my dress to the back side of my sleeve. And they should match up pretty well, but what I wanted to show you is I'm starting it, grab my pins over here. Okay, I'm starting it at the center side seam here. So when I go to match these together, at the 5/8 inch point, these two are matching, but I'm not going to start sewing until right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my pin there. And then, so this is going to be left open. I can close that up later. That's going to be easy to close up later. It would be more difficult to sew over it and get these locked into place, okay? So with that, just go ahead and match these up. If one seems a little bit bigger than the other, and because I was eyeballing a whole bunch of these casings and everything, that might be the case with you. Either just, you know, stretch it out a bit, or when you're sewing, put the side that's a little bit bigger down on top of the feed dogs, okay? So that you're looking at this side. This is the needle side, that's the bobbin side. And as you hold it, just hold it a little bit tighter, and the feed dogs will work in all of that extra ease, you know, and it'll all work out. So let me go ahead and get both of my sleeves put on here. I'm going to sew them at a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then I'm going to pop this up on the dress form just to see what she's looking like. Okay, so I just popped it onto my dress form, and what I did is I went ahead and I cinched up my little tapes so that it would be gathered enough that it would fit on my dress form. And I just pinned them. When the gals come for their fitting tomorrow, I can adjust the tapes to fit their body. Okay, this is a very versatile pattern. So I just pinned this up here. This is some of that edging that I think would look pretty, but I just have it pinned up, you know, for final approval. And because I need to adjust these gathers later, you know, this is just for looking. Once I have these gathers set where they're going to need to be, and the little tape stitched into place so they're not going to move anymore, then I can go ahead and put the trim on, but not yet. But I just wanted to show you, I just have a ribbon tied around at the waist. It's a pretty wide grosgrain ribbon, actually. It's a nice ribbon. Here are the sleeves. And in the back, I just kind of have things, you know, draped together and pinned together and everything. So, you know, on the sides where my two different colored panels come together, it adds a bit of interest, you know. And I wanted to give the effect of different panels in the front, so we can work with that. But this is where it is right now. Tomorrow, when the gals come for fitting, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to film that or not, but we will see, and I will check back with you after that. Okay, so my ladies came by yesterday, and I did not film it because it would not have been appropriate, if you know what I mean. But I did get everything, you know, marked up, and my little drawstrings pulled in, so we're ready to go. So what I need to do is at each of these intersections where a sleeve part meets either a front or a back, I have the twill tape just pinned in place. In the seam allowance area over here, I'm just going to sew with my machine back and forth several times to lock that twill tape in, and then trim the little tail that's hanging off. So I'll do that to each, like on this section here, I'll do it to each side here in the seam allowance. And then once that is done and my little tapes are trimmed off, then I can just put those two pieces together. It's kind of awkward here. And with it like this, I can just continue this seam line all the way up to the top of the edge here, and it will be sewn together at the appropriate place. So let me go do that. I've got 4 intersections to deal with, and I will be back. Okay, so at each little seam, it is now closed up nicely. I need to come back in here. Sorry about that, to my sleeve bottom here, this is the side seam, and make some clips. I did not do that before because I wasn't sure if I was going to have to move some things, but Now that it is where it is, I'm just putting some clips in there about 1/4 inch deep all along the whole little sleeve area. So it's going to flex and be a lot more comfortable to wear. And because the front and the back look insanely similar at this point, I am going to go ahead and put one of my labels on the back. And we decided to use the flat part as the front, the V-shaped part is the back. So I'm going to get one of my little black labels, sew it right here, and clip the other arm, and I'll be right back. Right, so now that my label's on, I am going to be putting on some of this trim that has the gold on it, and I'm going to be starting it in the back. It's got a little piece of tape here. I'm going to actually clip that off. The tape was just to keep it from unraveling. What I am going to do is get a little bit of my clear nail polish here and just dab that on the ends to keep them contained so they're not going to want to unravel on me as I'm working here. Okay, that will dry soon. So I'm going to start this end about 1/2 inch over from the center back and get some clips here. Now at this point, the twill tape, it's still in a casing, you know, and I still have some discretion on where all my gathers are going to be. And I'm going to do it a little bit differently for the front and the back. For the back, I'm going to try to make them fairly even. For the front, what they decided is they want the center front pretty smooth, but most of the gathers on the sides. So when I get there, I will show you. But for right now, I'm just going to be using my clips to attach the little braid on there, okay? When I come back stitch it, I will be stitching it with my machine, okay? And I'm just going to stitch straight up the middle here over that center gold part. That should hold it, and if I'm using a off-white colored thread, it should blend really well. And the other thing it's going to do is kind of lock those gathers in the position we want them to stay. Okay, so that was 1/2 of the back. Up here on the sleeve, again, I'm going to make the gathers fairly uniform over the entire sleeve. And then clip my little braid on it at that point, like so. And it is going to be fairly thick going through my machine, but I am using Yolanda, and she usually has no problems with anything thick or tough, because she's a tough girl. So for the front here, like I said, they wanted most of the gathers to be over at the very sides and have this be fairly flat here. That's more Regency-ish. So that is what I have done. And so when I put my little trim on, I'm going to make sure that I clip it so that those gathers only stay where I want. Stretch this across here smoothly, and then more gathers here. All right, so this is the back, and so I clipped it, my trim, put nail polish on it, and I just have it kind of overlapped right there, so when I stitch it, I'll lock them both together. I'm going to go change my thread out for a light yellow, probably. I think that will blend with this stitching here, and I will probably put it on with a very narrow zigzag. I think that will work well. Okay, so I got that sewn on there, and that really is going to help to keep everything nice and secure up here, because this is quite a long dress and it is getting heavy, so I'm glad for the reinforcement that trim's going to give it. I do need to hem these, and what I did is while they had them tried on with the belt, I just had them stand because they want them floor length, basically about 1.25 inches up off the floor. And so while they had their belt on, I just sat on the floor and I made chalk marks at the point where the dress hit the floor. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go over to my serger and just serge along that chalk mark, cutting off the entire bottom bottom part and finishing off the edge all at one time. And then that's going to give me a nice level place to start my hem. Okay, so it is serged at, right now it is at floor level. And so what I'm going to do is turn it up 1.25 inches and get that pressed. And then I'm just going to hem this by machine, just running a straight stitch along the edge. Like I said, I'm kind of in a rush right now, so we're not trying to be period correct where everything is hand stitched and things. We're just trying to get it so at a glance they look like they blend at the party. Okay, so I'm going to finish pinning this, press the little hem, stitch it by machine, and I'm going to pop it on my dress form after that so we can get a look at how she's coming together. Okay, so I want to show you what she looks like right now. Now, this dress is for someone who's a little bit larger than I am, so I just kind of have her anchored on here. But the belt is just a very wide Petersham ribbon that I have. I think this is about 1.5 inches wide maybe. But you're going to get the idea. And I think for a very quick Regency gown, it's not bad. The sleeves are wide. A lot of times when you see the patterns for these types of dresses, they have the little gathered puff sleeves that come together in a band right here, which are adorable on young girls. You know, it looks cute on them. But for more mature people, having a little puff thing and a little band right here, I don't know. I don't think that I could do that at a ball, you know, where you need to be able to move, which this gives you. So we're almost done. Oh, and I wanted to show you, this is the other one. I just have her over here on my IV pole because, wow, how handy extra IV poles are. But what I did for the belt, what I did for the belt on this one is I had lace, beading lace, actually that they brought over, and I just sewed the beading lace, the top and the bottom of it, at the position where the belt needs to be, and then fed a grosgrain ribbon through it. Okay, so it's going like this through it. So when it comes time to put it on, you can just cinch up the ribbon. The lace stays there. It's kind of like multiple belt loops all the way around, but pretty, you know, and you get the fit that way. So this one is pretty good. Now, the last thing that I need to do on these is do the little kerchief shawl thing. And I cut out a 1 yard square. I did not look what the actual kerchiefs were sized at. I just cut out a 1 yard square, cut it diagonally, and tried that, and it seemed a little bit small. So what I'm going to do is go to my table, and with a 45-inch wide fabric, okay, 1.25 yards of 45-inch wide will make a square. All right, so first I'm going to get a piece that's like that. And I'm having an internal debate because a lot of times in the pictures, those are made out of white linen. I don't have white linen. I have like white broadcloth and things like that. But that's kind of stark up against all of this off-whiteness. So I'm kind of wanting to do an off-white kerchief. So I have a piece of, it's just muslin, you know, but muslin here, and I kind of like that color. It's a little more informal, unfortunately. I'm going to give him a call real quick, make sure that's okay, and if it is, we're going to cut it out of the muslin. Okay, so I have my 45-inch square here, and I went ahead and just serged around the edges. The outside edges actually, hopefully, will not be seen while they're wearing them. Those will be tucked in. And so I am thinking at this point, I'm just going to leave them serged because it'll be a lot less bulky that way. But I am folding this into a big triangle here. And at the fold, I am just going to cut straight across so I end up with two big triangles. And once I get this cut, I'm going to go ahead and serge this side also on both of the triangles. Okay, so this is that bias area here, and now that I have that sewn, I got to raise you up, way too close. I'm just going to turn it. I'm going to make a very narrow hem. So what I'm going to do is turn it and press it about 1/2 inch or less all the way up. And serging it ahead of time, you know, the serging is going to disappear as I hem over it, but it kind of gives the fabric a little bit of stability. So while I'm tugging on it, while I'm hemming, you know, it's almost like stay stitching, but not. So then when I'm going to go to sew it, I'm just going to tuck the serging underneath. I'll have a very narrow little hem, and I'm just going to do it on my machine and run a straight stitch right down the side right here. Okay, so I am over here on Yolanda, and I was going to mention I do have a rolled hem foot that's like the right size to use, but I'm actually just using a regular foot because I have found, if you don't know, I'll show you a rolled hem foot. I have found that with something cut on the straight, you know, they're pretty neat. This is what it looks like. It's got the little curl in there. Okay, but this is on the bias, and in my history and in my opinion, using a rolled hem foot on something caught on a curve or cut on a bias, it just doesn't make me happy. Things happen, and then I end up having to pick it out and redo it, and that is never fun. So I just wanted to show you over here on Yolanda what I'm talking about. I'm just going to get it started down here at the tip, do a little back stitch, see if I can get the camera in a little closer. So basically I am just turning it, you know, just a few inches ahead of my presser foot and running it down the edge just to edge stitch it. That is going to work well. And like I said, it's cut on a bias, but because I have my serging in there, it's enough stability that it's going to lay nice and flat and give me the clean little edge that I want. And that's it. I was thinking of putting lace along here, but I decided not to. I think that the dresses are as busy as they are without adding one more little piece of lace to it. So I'm just going to call it good once these are made up. Okay, so unfortunately I am not going to be able to video my friends wearing those dresses. Scheduling things happen, that was in the plan, but it looks like I'm not going to be able to do that. So they have already actually picked up the dresses. When they have their event, they're going to send me some photos from the event, so at least I'll be able to post those so you can see them working. So anyhow, I wanted to go ahead and get this video up though, because it's almost Halloween and maybe someone needs a Regency costume for Halloween and not much time, and maybe this will be helpful. So hope you like it, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Living my bucolic life, every city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and sew and spin, and move the horses into the barn, then time to move them out again. Red barns, green pastures, beautiful white houses, the view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as it is plain to see. I'm living my bucolic life.